I noticed this internal judge voice that was like, video games, when I was your age, I was out riding my bike, getting in trouble. But in watching them, I realized, oh, wow, these are not the games that we had when we were kids. All of the incredibly creative, innovator minds, what have they been working on for the last 15 years? Software. A huge portion of that is gaming. What if I could basically replicate that experience with scoring and tournaments and level ups, being able to build your character over time, and you're running around your yard, you're running around trees, you're shooting your buddies, but you're getting a full augmentation on top of that. So when I hit you, I see how many points I took. Maybe I see an upgraded blaster on the ground or a health kit. We wanted to find a way to digitize this physical projectile into a signal. So hit detection is one thing, but if I don't know who it was that actually shot that gellet at me, I can't give that credit to that person, one. And two, I can't deduct a certain amount of health depending on what blaster they are wielding. If you have your sniper, you're gonna do a significant amount of damage. If you have your SMG, you're shooting full automatic, but each time you hit me with that gellet, you're not doing nearly as much damage, bringing the strategy and the skill required to play a first-person shooter video game into the controls are your body. Now, when you get eliminated, you have to run back to your base, point at your own base, pull the trigger, and that respawns you. If I'm getting low on health, I want to take cover, switch over to health pack, go back to my SMG, go back to my revolver, whatever. I'm back out battling again. It's gonna be really fun.
Come on.
I mean,
trying to, as I was kind of prepping a little bit today, the thing that always comes to mind when I think about gel blasters is, I had reached out a number of times to invest, and you graciously said, dude, we're good right now. Like, I can self-fund this, and it's growing and it's great. And totally honored that and respected that, and was just holding out like maybe someday he'll need some funds. And it happened to be on the same day, and I know I've told you this, but when Ty Ward, who was, back then he and I were doing a lot of deals together, he and I had been working on this deal for 6 months.
Yep.
And we had a deal in place to come in to be the equity for this kind of growing company. And that day they changed the terms, and originally we were going to be able to buy up to 20%. They came to us on that day and said, yeah, we only want you to buy 10 total, and then 5% on that day. And we were supposed to buy 10%, 5%. And then they upped the valuation on us.
we'll take the same amount of money, but you get half as much.
Yeah. I'm like, that's kind of not how it works. If you want to cut back the amount of equity, you need to give us a better deal. And it became apparent to us that these just weren't guys we wanted to be in business with. They had some other stuff probably going on. They probably raised a little bit of money from their friends at a better valuation, and, from people who maybe weren't as sophisticated. And I get that. But that was done. We're like, you guys can, basically fuck off. Like, we don't do business like this. We had a deal in good faith. And literally that day you texted me, and it was obviously, as you and I both feel, it's just a sign, like, of course, like, that was not who we want to be in business with. And more than just being in business with you, it's just been so awesome to be part of this ride. It's probably been, it's coming up on 3 years. I feel like this January is when we've had that initial conversation. But I've known about it since before then. And, I don't know. You and I have talked about you coming on the podcast too. So this has been a long time coming.
Yeah. I'm so stoked to be here.
Yeah, man.
It's
so
really
welcome.
Fun. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll tell you really quick, the thing that got me, you had mentioned, like, yeah, I get it. Like, you may not need the cash right now, but it might be fun to do this with your friends and, like, have some people that you're doing it with, and kind of, like, it could just be fun. And that really stuck to me. I was like, yeah, that would be fun. Like, and that's when kind of the light bulb went off that I wanted all of the early investors to just be friends of mine, and other business founders, and, people that have been through a similar journey. And it was very interesting. I noticed that, in previous companies, when raising money, I would never have wanted to raise money from friends. Just go to VCs, get it funded, whatever. And I realized like, wow, what a difference. Like I could tell that this was going to do well. And I didn't want to just give that upside to some VC I'd never met. I wanted to give the most upside to my friends and family and, other, people that have been through similar journeys and have done the hard work, and so, you were the one that really kind of put me onto that concept. And, I think there's a pretty good group of people that are going to do pretty well off of this. So
dude, it's so cool when I see the kind of list of all our friends that are involved. And I didn't even know, I mean, after the first round was obviously me,
just you and Tarun in the first
me and
round.
Tarun.
That was it. That's right.
And then the second round, opened up to a lot of our buddies, and, it's so cool. It's been such a crazy, I mean, really a rocket ship, the way things have gone and the issues you've had to solve for given supply chain stuff and legal and trademarks and, now patents, which, all this stuff is, I mean, it's such a crazy, I mean, I haven't had an experience in something this, I guess, complex. I've been investing in a lot of different things, but, part of it too is you and I are so close that I get those updates and you share like all the things that are going on. It seems like every time I talk to you, it's just, I'm blown away with what's happened in the advancements. And, we'll get into all that stuff and particularly the technology side of it, which is fascinating, which I think was probably the most challenging thing to solve for, because that is the door that takes this thing to, we don't really know.
The portal.
Yeah, it really, there you go. Well done. You're in the portal now.
That's right.
And the portal is the newest part of the toy company. Right. So anyway, why Gel Blasters? How did this thing come about?
That's a good question. Well, I think how it became Gel Blaster, that was kind of my next thing, was after just witnessing my two boys, who were at the time 8 and 12, and just how much they were playing their video games. And, like, we mountain bike and we wake surf and we snowboard every year. And we, they're like pretty proficient, in their bodies. And, but they still, like, they really love playing their video games, and they would really gravitate toward them. And, I kind of had I noticed this internal judge voice of mine that was like, video games. When I was your age, I was out riding my bike, getting in trouble, throwing rocks through old windows and, why aren't you guys out tearing up the neighborhood, And then I was like, okay, easy there, judgy judge. And I was like, why don't you just get curious, right? Like, why is this? What's going on here? And that's when I realized, after I started really watching them play and started playing with them, little fuckers, they're so good. And they would just kill me over and over. I was playing Fortnite with them, they're just laughing at me, you noob, I'd fall out of the sky and they would just, bam, kill me again. Then I'd fall out of the sky again, bam, kill me again. And I'm like, I'll get you back. I'll just make my own game and then bring you into it.
Yes.
But in watching them, I realized, like, oh, wow, these are not the games that we had when we were kids, like, at all. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, when you were out riding your bike, messing around, was I really making like the healthy choice? Not at all. All I wanted to consume was candy. All I wanted to do was do whatever was the most fun, most selfish thing I could possibly do. That's who I was as a kid. And so I realized that it was just that my options indoors were not that compelling. It was like MacGyver didn't come on till 7:00. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came on in the evenings. Like, I'm out all day. There's nothing to do at home, right? And our kids have access to some of the most engaging, most compelling, most like engineered by behavioral, psychiatrists to ping their dopamine receptors continuously, right? And be as sticky as possible. And these games are incredible. and while our outdoor activities are largely unchanged, sure, we have spike ball now and we have pickleball is getting more popular, although that was out when we were kids. We just didn't know about it.
Is that right?
Yeah, like in the 60s.
Oh, shit.
It started. Yeah. And then it just popped off in like the last 8 or 10 years. But, I realized that, okay, parents these days, like we're up against a bit of an unfair fight. If you think about all of the innovation and all of the incredibly bright, creative, innovator minds, what have they been working on for the last 15 years? Software, right? Because it's so easy to get funded, right? You got these mega companies like Apple that are making you this incredible hardware that you can write your experiences on. And among software, a huge portion of that is gaming. We're talking like maybe $300 to $400 billion a year industry, depending on where you look, depending on what the report is. But a $300 to $400 billion a year annual industry. To give an example, Fortnite at one point was doing $7 billion in revenue annually, and all they were selling was flexes.
So really?
It's not like Madden Mobile where you could spend hundreds of dollars and then just have this super overpowered team, right? You cannot buy more lethality or the ability to beat other players in Fortnite. All you buy are skins and dance moves. And they're just flexes. And they were doing $7 billion a year selling flexes.
That is crazy.
It's crazy. And so I realized, wow, man, if no one does anything about this, if no one makes the decision to like build some hard stuff, because software is not going to get our kids off the couch by itself. Now, yes, our system will have a lot of software involved, but it's got to be something that gets them out in the physical world. And so I just kind of started playing this thought experiment of like, what if we could build that? What if I could basically replicate that experience, but instead of having to use your hands on the controllers to like, because they kept beating me. And I was like, well, I know what I want my character to do.
Yeah.
I want to jump behind that bush. I want to roll over that car and I want to swing up and shoot you in the head, but I can't get my fingers, like my brain knows what it wants to do, but you have to put so much time into having those controls become second nature. I don't have that time. And I was just thinking, and so I started taking the kids to play Fortnite, or not Fortnite. We started taking the kids to play paintball, which was kind of the closest thing I could come up with, that was like that. But and paintball was awesome. They loved it. Actually, Achilles, who's now 16, was 12 at the time, loved playing paintball. Cruz came to play with us once. He was 8. I think a couple of them drew blood.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, y'all can have paintball. Yeah. But it was so much more exciting than playing the video game. But you didn't have all the stuff in the video game that makes a video game so engaging, with the scoring and the different blasters cause different amounts of damage, and health packs to rebuild your shield. And like paintball, one time I dove behind a barricade at the very beginning of a game. It was like 45 minutes. We're finally going into play. I dived behind this barricade and I guess my foot was hanging out and I got a paintball right in the foot. And your referee's like, okay, you're out. And I'm like, oh, sweet. Now I get to go sit for 20 minutes till the next game. I was like, no video game would ever be like that. No one would play it. It's not one shot, you're out. And so then I started thinking like, could we create something that is like, has the excitement and the kind of consequence that comes along with the paintball experience, but that has, that also has all the digital elements and the scoring and tournaments and level ups and achievements and, being able to build your character over time. And so that was kind of the initial thought experiment. And, I knew at that time that augmented reality was coming and is coming. And there's billions and billions of dollars of R&D being put into it by these, biggest companies in the world. Right. And, VR is like kind of okay, whatever, but AR is going to be a thing. And it'll be the next kind of big consumer technology. And so I figured, oh, wow, interesting that this experience, to really get it right and feel like you're in a video game, you kind of need that augmented reality layer. So you're seeing through the glasses and you're running around your yard, you're running around trees, you're shooting your buddies, but you're getting a full augmentation on top of that. So when I hit you, I see how many points I took right off over the top of your head. Maybe I see an upgraded blaster on the ground or a health kit over on the ground over there. When I hit a target, there's a big explosion that happens in AR. So it's this kind of blending of the digital and physical world where we're like really meeting our kids where they're at, where they want to be. And, I'm checking my boxes, you're running around, you're playing. And when the game ends, now you're just looking at another human in the eyes. You got to learn how to do that. Right now, when their game ends, when they're playing, people just disappear. There's no like real connection with those people that they're chatting with while they're playing, right? So that's kind of where the thought experiment came in is really ultimately because they kept beating me over and over. And I was like, what if I just...
And you're a competitive son of a bitch.
What if I just made my own game where I could just point at you and shoot you with one of these blasters? Yeah. I like my chances at that point.
Yes. So how did the blaster come about? Like, can you describe to people kind of what the mechanism is and how it's different than paintball, Nerf, and these other things?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, we pulled out all the blasters. We owned probably 30 Nerf blasters. We owned laser tag and these augmented reality games that use like an iPhone next to each blaster, paintball markers. We had airsoft. Airsoft lasted like 3 days at our house because we got a big thing of BBs, plastic BBs. And after maybe 2 or 3 days of playing, it was like down to here.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of looking out in the yard like, hey, ain't nobody picking up these things.
Yeah.
We're just literally spraying plastic all over the yard. And with airsoft and paintball, it is like you have to really pay attention to the kids. Like if you take your eye protection off, like you get these things taken away for like a week. It's serious, right? Because you can really do permanent eye damage. And so we just kind of took all the pros and cons of everything. We essentially use this. The ammo is kind of like those little water hydrating balls that are like those sensory balls that have been around for a long time. Actually, the material was created for agricultural purposes back in the 60s to help soil retain moisture in arid climates. So it's actually, you're essentially watering your yard, right? And the ammo also is really, really affordable, super inexpensive. So when we would go play paintball, one of the hard things about paintball is it was pretty pricey. Like every time Achilles and I would go play, we're spending $400 on paint.
Oh shit.
In like 2 or 3 hours. Right. And we started playing like a couple times a month. I'm like, damn, I got $1,000 a month paintball bill,
Yeah.
Ask Ty, he played a lot more than that. Right. I can only imagine how much, I'm sure he was getting a deal on his paint, but that paint is expensive. 10,000 paintballs is about $400 to $450, depending on where you are. $20 to $25 a bag of 500. We sell our ammo. 10,000 gellets for our consumers is $5. So what's one of the fun things to do as a kid is shoot a whole bunch of ammo, right? Yes. So full auto, electric powered, charge it with a USB-C cable, built-in lithium-ion batteries, right? No fiddly taking out batteries and using special cables, no compressed air. Also, it leaves no mess. These little gel balls just burst and then they evaporate and essentially just disappear. They're 99.9% water, 0.1% starch. And so the reason we created the blaster company was I feel like when you're creating a product or a company or a market, you really need to continually test your assumptions and make sure that you're not just drinking your own Kool-Aid, right? So we could have built this entire thing in stealth mode, raised $15, $20 million, given up a huge portion of the company and launched with this video game in the real world concept. Or we can sell stuff along the way, right? And we can test our assumptions along the way. So let's just make a plain Jane analog version of the blaster that doesn't do any scoring, doesn't do any kind of, digital tech or anything like that, but is the foundation. The hypothesis I was really trying to test is like, if there's no physical projectile, it's a non-starter. Laser tag is just boring. It's just not fun. Right? You just run around pointing at each other, seeing who's going to like come back to life first and who's going to kind of win the timing game, right? Kids that play laser tag, which is $1 billion a year industry globally, play 1.6 times per year. So like once every 9 months, a kid has a birthday party at a laser tag place, they go play laser tag. It's not something that kids are playing all the time. It's just kind of boring because there's no consequences, right? And so I was like, there has to be some risk, right? If you look at flow, right, and you want to get people into like full presence, there's got to be some kind of consequence, something at stake, right?
Yeah.
To like bring you into presence. Because when you get hit by a bunch of gellets in the neck at 230 feet per second, you feel it.
Yeah.
It hurts. And, it hurts enough that like you are paying attention while you're playing, right?
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, well, we can make blasters that just shoot these gellets, and we can test and see if just the plain Jane blaster is fun and if people like it. And if we can sell those at a good margin and grow that company, then we'll know that the foundation for this thing that we're building and going to be releasing in a few years is actually sound, right? So it gave us a chance to kind of test that theory. And I did not realize how fast that side of the business would scale and how much people love it. But they're super fun. It's hard to play gel blasters with your friends and not just be laughing hysterically. They really incite hysterical laughter, because it's like enough pain that when you're getting lit up, you just can't not laugh.
Totally. And you're running around, and we've done it a bunch with our friends that are our age and with our kids and our kids' friends. And it's really for everybody. That's what's so rad about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, I remember when we had that initial meeting, I feel like there were probably 8 or 9 of us around the table at your house, and that was the company.
That was a whole company. It was a all company, all hands meeting.
Yes,
It was like 8 of us.
Where are you now?
I think we're 91 employees right now.
Damn.
Yeah.
How is it managing that?
It's a lot. It can be a lot. And, the interesting thing is I have tried to really stay true to, I'm not going to let myself get completely sucked in to, building a company anymore. I'd made that mistake in the past with DJI, with 3D robotics. And, I was like, I am going to have kind of a container of my life that works for me, that is very sustainable, that I could live for the next 20 years and feel very fulfilled, even if I don't get to some big liquidity event. And from within that structure, I want to create and build as much as I can, but I'm not going to kind of forsake my own well-being and my own enjoyment of my life just because this thing is really big and now a whole bunch of people's paychecks rely on it. And man, it starts getting really interesting because, it's Tuesday today. So Christy and I were just out foiling this morning on Lake Austin, only boat out there, complete glass water, just the 2 of us on the boat. We each got 30, 40 minutes behind the boat of great foil time. And I do that pretty much every Tuesday and Thursday morning. And then, I like to play a lot. I like to go down to our boat, and spend a lot of time on the boat down in the Caribbean. And I find myself sometimes struggling with maybe feeling guilty that I'm not doing more and working harder and putting in 80, 90 hour weeks because, hey, this thing is so important. It's growing so fast. You've got investors now, you've got all these employees, and, there's all these competitors coming into the market space. And, I think one of the things that has allowed me to, feel like this is sustainable is really being true to myself and what makes me feel good. And if I'm feeling good, I'm generally making better decisions for the business. And, I think one of the hacks was to build a company around play. Right. Yeah. And that's really our mission in the world, is to get more kids outside playing. But by way of that, we're getting a lot of people out playing more, parents and older kids. And really, like, every single one of us has a kid that lives inside of us, right? That kid that we were growing up is not gone and dead. They're still part of us. And so let's get those kids outside playing. And, so therefore we instituted, maybe 9 months ago, I had this idea. I was like, if I want to make sure that my inner child has kind of a co-pilot seat in my life and in this business, right? I'm making blasters. He should have a voice. He knows about what fun is. He knows about what is a cool experience or not, right? So let's let him ride up front with me and be part of this conversation. And it was in one of these meditations that I realized, wow, one of the things that I loved the most going to school, maybe the thing that I loved the most going to school was recess. And every day when Cruz would get home, actually his recess just ended. Now he has PE. He's in 6th grade. But all through elementary school, every day, what was your most fun thing about the day? Recess. What was your most fun thing about today? Recess. Every day, right? Loves recess. I'm like, why did we stop doing recess? We should just do recess. What if we gave all of our employees the opportunity to do whatever they want that lights them up, that is fun, that allows them to blow off some steam, that gets them ready for the afternoon? What if we just do a recess every day? And then my thinking mind was like, oh, absolutely not. These people are going to get to work. And they're, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, let's this came in for a reason. Let's at least explore this. Anyways, we started doing recess about 9 months ago. We do recess every day at 12:30. A bell goes off in the office, just like in school, and everyone cuts off for recess. And then at 2:00, the bell goes off again. You're back from recess. Now that's also kind of lunchtime, but most people choose to eat lunch before or after recess at their desk or at a meeting or whatever. And they really want to make the most of recess, right? So we have our wake surf boat at the office. Our office is right on Lake Austin. So we take people out and they can learn how to wake surf. We've got e-foils at the office. They can learn how to e-foil. We've got paddle boards. We get spike ball. We have team kickball, snow cone truck will come up. And this isn't like a special occasion. It's every single day. People have 90 minutes to do whatever they want. That is the most enjoyable thing. They want to sit and play video games. Fine. You want to take a nap. You want to meditate. You want to read a book. Whatever it is just is your time. And what I realize is most adults even don't have 90 minutes a day to do whatever they want. That's like a massive luxury that you kind of have to get to this certain level of, success or, really dialing in your life, especially if you have kids, right? Because you get home from work, it's like time to be a dad, time to do kid stuff, time to feed the kids. Okay, get the kids to bed. Now it's like, okay, I got 30 minutes. Me and Christy get to hang out before we go to sleep.
And that's not even your time. I mean, obviously you want to spend it with Christy, but right. Where is Colin's time for him and his child? Yeah.
That's right. And so, that's been a really, really fun and I think a very productive, element that we've added to our company is this concept of recess. And, it's not all about being bliss junkies and just playing all the time. It's it's really balanced. It really truly is work hard, play hard. Right. So it's recess is coming. So let's have a sense of urgency to get as much possible stuff done and as efficiently as possible until 12:30, because you're going to put it all down for an hour and a half. And then come 2:00, let's dive back in and sprint for the rest of the afternoon. And so you have kind of two big sprints throughout the day. And I feel like we are not getting any less work done, maybe actually getting more work done than when you're looking at a 8 or 9 hour day as one block. People tend to just kind of okay, I'm not trying to burn myself out here. It's a marathon. You know what I mean?
And post lunch too. We all feel that. And
post lunch at our place, we have an ice bath in the office.
Yeah.
So, post lunch, you come in, there's locker rooms downstairs. People have maybe they went to the gym and worked out downstairs. Maybe they came off the lake. They jump in the ice bath for 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, people are fresh at 2:00 and they are diving back into their afternoon. So, that's been really fun.
Dude, it's there's so much that comes to mind there. For one, so many people that are, into a job that's a 8, 9, 10 hour day, they don't have time to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have the discipline to wake up early and do it. And that's great for them, but that doesn't work for a lot of people. So you actually give people that window that is so energy giving to them that they don't have to think about, and they get to do it with their friends at work. Hey, let's go do this workout. And I know Jake, my son, worked over there in the springtime before summer and friggin' loved it. And I think that's when, he was telling me all about recess and he loved it. And sometimes he would come home and work out. And for him, it was, he loved working there. He loved the energy of the place. He was one of the younger kids. I know Achilles was there for a bit too while he was there. And so they get to play ping pong together. But he felt, as a kid at that point, was 20, felt really just accepted and at home there with a lot of adults.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think kids especially feel welcome because we honor the kid within all of us so much. And we honor the kids that we are working for to help give them a really fun thing to do that's more active and community building and connecting with other humans. Like that's so much our mission that like we love kids at our office. I mean, parents are always bringing their kids by. We got school groups coming by to learn about how we develop products, and we give them all blasters. And, we love young people at our office for sure.
Oh, that's so cool. And one of the things you're saying earlier, and it's one of the things that stood out for me as you've grown the company, is that you really do take time for yourself and your family. And I don't know if people understand how hard that can be to do, because you can be on mission, especially the masculine comes out and it's like, this is what I need to do. And I have all these people relying on me and all the stories we tell ourselves. And
it's very easy to justify.
Oh, I go through it. I don't even have a company, but I go through my cycles of not taking care of myself. And, the more work I've done on myself, I've started to uncover the roots of that as a child and wanting to please and make my mom and dad proud, and all these different things that really drove me to create some very healthy, adaptive skills that later in life become maladaptive because they're running roughshod over my life. And to be able to do that in that environment with the stakes very high is such an impressive feat. And I think you're letting everybody else know that this shit's really important to me, but it's not the most important thing to me.
Yep.
And so this is what it looks like. And I think back when I was a trader in Chicago, and I got hired very early on in a very small group, and the main partner, Will Hobart, was in the trading industry. I mean, you can imagine what kind of people work in that business, and he was different, and it was family first. And he didn't just say that, he lived that, and he took time off and he worked his ass off. His family was always first.
Wow,
and
that's great.
Yeah. So that's what I learned from him, so I don't think enough people have an experience with that. And so that it's a little bit foreign to them, but to see that you are full embodiment of that. And it is very much on brand with Gel Blaster and Go Play and what you're trying to create in the world. And remind me again what it's March 21st is Go Play Day.
Right. 3, 2, 1, Go Play.
That's how I remembered it. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. We, as we, the first, like the role Christy plays in our organization is really.
Yeah. By the way, this is not normal. That, a partnership, a marriage that you guys have that both have such a crucial role in this fledgling company.
Yes. Yeah. It's, we work together at DJI, and, we're both not aware, and, especially me, and, just fully driven by ego, fully, type A, just win at all cost, basically what I looked like on season 5 of The Amazing Race.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was really challenging for us to work together. And now I have really learned really just how much trust and faith that I put in her connection to all source, her feminine energy, her goddess, right? And we have both done a tremendous amount of work over the past decade. And for her, that has really opened up her connection and her channel to be our oracle, right? And we really embrace these kind of the polarity of the masculine and feminine, right? And so I feel like as the masculine, I'm here to kind of do and create and provide structure and safety and support and security, almost kind of like in a real time way, right? From within her guidance at the higher level of what we're actually trying to build in the world and why it matters and what is most important so as to not let my ego that wants to go out and be really successful and show what a great entrepreneur guy I am, like keeping that in check. Like, no. What we're actually doing is trying to give kids an awesome thing to do and have fun with and play. And so we have to embody that. And I noticed that even just the other day, we took a group of people out to Enchanted Rock and kind of had a, ceremony hike, throughout the day. And we were really working together hand in hand. She was like our shaman medicine woman leading this incredible experience and just being guided over here and being guided over there. And I would realize like, oh, my, left brain, like we're off the trail and, we're trying to get a 7-hour hike done. I was like, we all gotta have enough food with us, like y'all are gonna be real hungry in about 4 hours, yes. and I would like hear that. And I'm like, no, just follow her lead, let her guide and let her intuition lead us. And every time it happened like 4 times. And every time we just end up in some magical spot that I'd never seen there, this big outcropping of crystals growing out of the ground. And we just get to sit there and be on the crystals and, lay on them, sit in them, touch them, connect with them. And it would be like a 5 or 6 minute thing, 10-minute thing, And so then I was like learning, like, see, that worked. Like, don't fight it. Let her guide us at the high level. And then I'll provide the structure and support and keeping the train moving forward when it needs to. And so we've really learned how to do that. And so as it relates to, 3-2-1 play day, Christy, really helped. Chrissy and I did it together, but she really kind of helped channel a lot of our manifesto for the company, which is a really, really cool manifesto around, essentially, fostering a global movement around play that helps people heal, right? And heal their inner children. And so as part of this mission to bring more play into the world, we figured, hey, wouldn't it be cool if once a year we do a play day, right? And we started kind of looking into it. And if you do it the same day 4 years in a row, you can actually apply to the UN and it will become the International Day of Play. So the first International Day of Play was 3-2-1 of this past year. And we actually were on the lawn of the Capitol playing Gel Blaster, playing Spike Ball. We had pickleball out there. Wes brought Cortex, pickleball setup out. We had DJs and dancing, and a bunch of local companies were bringing out their bars and drinks and waters and stuff like that. And we actually had maybe another 25 events happening around the world. We've got Patrick Cronfley, who ran Unify, the global synchronized meditations. He's our director of community and really building our community. So he was able to use a lot of his skill sets to, have a bunch of other events happening throughout the world. And so this year is going to be our second annual coming up in March. And we will do it at the Moody Center. So we'll have the entire Moody Center and it will be a day of play, just like before. And the fun thing about this one is that we will have a Gel Blaster Nexus tournament. So it'll be like our first esport tournament of this video game in the physical world, mixed with a day of play and bringing out a lot of local companies. And we'll have different events throughout the country and different distributors of ours around the world. We're now in like 60 countries. Will be hosting their own day of play. And so, yeah, it's really exciting just to like remember what we're doing it for.
Talk more about Gel Blaster Nexus.
Yeah. So, like I said, so while we've been selling the foundation of the experience, which is shoot your friends in the face with gellets, because it's really fun. Lips, earlobes, necks, these are the best spots, right? So as we've been building that business, we have Guinn Partners as well, right? Which is our product engineering, prototyping firm, where we got to work on, the electric powered hydrofoil surfboard for lift foils and, one-man flying drones that are 18 rotors you sit inside of and fly yourself around, that are, we've gotten to work on all these really cool high-tech products. So that group of engineers has been working on solving hit detection and hit attribution for like the last 3 years, and how we would build out this networked infrastructure of smart IoT devices that fundamentally what I really wanted to accomplish was that you only score by hitting someone with the projectile, right? There's not like we could have done it where you're just shooting projectiles, but you score like IR, right? Like laser tag. But then you could like miss the person with your gellet and still score points, you know? And I was like, nah, you have to score by actually hitting them. And if, you know, you're having to deal with wind or gellets that aren't perfectly accurate, like welcome to the real world, right? And so we wanted to find a way to digitize this physical projectile into a signal in the game with very, very low latency, right? So we had to, you know, we looked at a lot of different ways of doing this using cameras or computer vision or, you know, sound. Ultimately, we ended up using piezoelectric sensors that sense vibration. Turns out it's all vibration when you know. So the gellet creates a vibration when it hits, you know, one of the hit panels. And so you wear a vest. It has hit panels on the arms, the front, the back, the sides. You know, we have good amount of coverage area. Each one of these panels is surrounded by RGB LED lights that play different animations depending on what's happening in the game. And then in the background, we actually use an IR signal as well. And that's how we do hit attribution, right? So hit detection is one thing. I've been hit, right? And you could build kind of a game off of that. But if I don't know who it was that actually shot that gellet at me, I can't give those points. And I can't give that credit to that person, one. And two, I can't deduct a certain amount of health depending on what blaster they are wielding, right? So even though they're shooting the same gellet at me, if you have your sniper blaster, selected when you're shooting me, for one, you're only going to be able to shoot semi-auto. You're only going to be able to shoot one shot per second because it's kind of a bolt action sniper rifle, right? But if you hit my vest with one of those gellets, you're going to do a significant amount of damage to my health, right? If you have your SMG, equipped, on the other hand, you're shooting full automatic. Maybe you have a 33 round mag capacity or a 50 round mag capacity, depending on how you've upgraded that blaster. And then of course, when you run out of your kind of digital ammo, which are again, gellets, you have to tilt the blaster to the side and back up. And that's kind of our reload action. Now you've got another magazine loaded. But each time you hit me with that gellet, you're not doing nearly as much damage as, say, if you had your revolver or your sniper, right? So there's real strategy involved in like, what am I providing suppressive cover fire, or am I like sneaking up behind someone and I got the jump on them? I might switch to my revolver, which is semi-auto, 6 shots, but that does a lot of damage per shot. I can take a full elimination at that point, right? And so Nexus is this like, bringing the strategy and the skill required to be, play a first-person shooter video game, but into the controls are your body, right? Instead of using the right stick to control where you look, you use your neck muscles. And instead of using the left stick to control your character forward and back, left and right, you use your leg muscles and you run forward and back and left and right. Instead of pushing a button to like kneel down or go prone, you just kneel down or lay down or roll or dive or run around, right? And so most of the controls, what I notice when you're playing these video games, is just like moving your character around and looking correctly and aiming correctly, all of which you just do with your body. And then of course, to shoot, you just pull the trigger and you shoot gellets. And so really our blaster, it's got a screen built in and there's just 2 buttons. And the 2 buttons allow you to cycle between which blaster you have equipped or to move over to health packs, because while you're in the arena playing, if one of the portals on the wall are blue, you shoot that portal and that picks up a health pack, right? And so you can pick up weapons upgrades or health upgrades or shield upgrades, depending on what color these portals are that light up. And then you're holding onto that health pack. So if your health gets down to 20% or something like that, you don't want to give an elimination to the other team because you get a huge points bonus for eliminating a player. Now, when you get eliminated and you lose all your health, your blaster stops working. It doesn't shoot anymore, right? And so there's no reason for you to just sit out there. You can't just keep shooting someone. Your blaster stops working. You have to run back to your base, point at your own base, pull the trigger, and that respawns you. So you don't have to sit out for 20 minutes and wait for the next game. You're still playing. You're still in it. But the
other team got a big bonus.
They get a big points bonus because they got an elimination, right?
Yeah.
And so you do want to pay attention to that. It behooves you and your strategy for your team to win to, like, if I'm getting low on health, I want to take cover, switch over, use these 2 buttons, switch over to health pack, consume, each health pack by doing a reload action.
Oh shit.
Get my health back up to 80 or 100%, go back to my SMG, go back to my revolver, whatever. I'm back out battling again. And I didn't give up an elimination, right? It's gonna be really fun.
Come on.
I mean, it's gonna be really fun.
So this is gonna be ready for March 21st this year at Moody Center.
Yes, it will be. And in fact, we're going to be launching this in just maybe 4 weeks at IAAPA in Florida, which is the trade show where amusements and attractions are sold to family entertainment centers and location-based entertainment businesses. And in fact, next week, we will be playing our first 3-on-3 prototype of this experience with vests, smart blasters, targets, full software. So, you know, if you're around, you want to come play the inaugural game, let me know.
So that is ready to go.
Yeah. And we just launched Main Event. So Main Event up on 183.
Yep.
We converted their whole climbing gym, which wasn't really getting any business for them, I guess. They wanted us to convert it to a big gel blaster arena. And so that just opened last week. So now kids are going in and playing gel blaster. Now they're using everything that you could buy at like a Target or a Walmart today, which is just our core blasters. We have the glow in the dark system going, which is the Starfire system. So every gellet that's flying through the air is glowing. So it gives us really cool effect. And then we have a bunch of our smart targets that are all Wi-Fi mesh network together. And so on one wall, you have a group of 5 targets with a couple targets on the outside. So 7 targets total that act as that team's base. And if you go and shoot each target, you have to shoot it 2 times to take down that target. If you get all 7 of them taken down before they start regenerating, you get a huge point bonus. And so we're trying to create a gameplay that kind of equally rewards defense and offense. So if you're a younger kid and you don't really want to get shot much, you can take cover by your base and just shoot the people that are coming at you trying to score points, right? And that gives something for like a little bit more of a timid player to do where they're getting to shoot a bunch, but they're not really getting hit as much. You're an older player, you're more of a risk taker, you can be a forward or more of an attacker, you going to the other team's side of the arena and trying to shoot their base, and then you're going to be getting lit up, right? And so they're playing that now, which is actually really, really fun. Now, we don't have hit detection vests and smart blasters, so we're missing a huge element of the gameplay. But what is so interesting is to see how much kids love just scoring on targets, right? And we don't even have the vests yet and the smart blasters. So yeah, definitely come play at Main Event. Super fun. That's going. I think right now we're kind of doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. We just opened, like I said, was our first full weekend open was this past weekend. And then we'll have a little hidden area up there where we're going to be prototyping and building out this digital Nexus experience. And so that'll be kind of happening behind a curtain, like actually behind a curtain. And we'll be kind of dialing in this 3-on-3 gameplay that we'll be taking to IAAPA in about a month and launching there.
And so what's the goal at IAAPA? It's to open up a bunch of these Gel Blaster Nexus centers.
That's right. So the goal is to identify our 200 launch partners, our 200 launch locations. We want Gel Blaster Nexus to be available in 200 locations next year where, you know, and the whole gameplay ties in with what you're doing at home. So if you have our portals in your yard, you can play the same games and you can be building your character stats and grinding and upgrading your weaponry and upgrading, you know, earning points. And then you actually book your game at, call it a Main Event or some laser tag center. You book your game through the app. And then if you're tied in with the system, you can actually control which blasters and what your blaster attributes are because you've kind of set that up yourself on your app, you know, before you got there at home. So you can be kind of customizing your specific loadout the way you want it. And so if you have a flashlight optic on your SMG, right? When you select SMG, a super bright flashlight turns on the front of the blaster. And I'm talking like bright. We might have to turn it down. One of our lead engineers, the president at Guinn Partners, his name is Aaron, and he was maybe like the lead engineer of Tracking Point, which is the smart rifle. That was a Texas-based company. And he's engineered some pretty incredible tech. And I was like, I want when you do the flashlight optic, I want the flashlight optic to be something that has levels, right? And if you level up enough where you have like the level 5 flashlight optic, when you equip it, it's like going to make it hard to respond when you're getting shined at, right?
Wow.
And, if your blaster has glow in the dark, you can, when you select that blaster, UV lights turn on the inside of the blaster, which charge up the gellets with the phosphorus that's inside. And all of a sudden there's glowing gellets. Maybe, down the road when you're picking up different power-ups, one power-up might be that you turn all of the other teams glow in the dark off for 30 seconds. So they're like shooting in the dark. They can't see where their ammo's flying,
shit.
All kinds of different stuff you can do, right? So by programmatically being able to control the blaster, so we control the rate of fire. So how many shots per second, whether it's semi-auto, triple shot burst, full auto. So firing mode, rate of fire, how many shots per second? It might be 5 shots per second. It might be, you get some super power up. It might be 14 shots per second where you're like really sending a bunch of ammo. We control the velocity. So there'll be a little worm drive servo motor that controls the preloading of a spring inside the blaster. So if you have a certain blaster, or if you go up into the sniper tower in the arena, depending on where your location is, depending on what blaster you have, depending on your level, it actually can control the velocity of the gellet. So that's how far you can be, your kind of your effective range, right? We can control how many points of damage you do per shot. And so because, we can control whether the flashlight comes on and off, whether the glow in the dark comes on and off. So all of this stuff that you have one blast in your hand, it can actually represent infinitely many blasters in the digital game that you're playing. So
holy shit.
Yeah.
Who did you have to bring on people from other video game companies and to create stuff like this? Like how, I mean, this is,
interestingly,
this is intense. Holy shit.
Yeah. It's funny because when we built Gel Blast, I was like, maybe it doesn't have to be so complex like drones. I've been doing such complex products for so long. I'm like, it can just be simple. They just shoot gellets,
Yeah.
And then here we go, making it
my God.
super complex, as we do. But drones are pretty cool if you play with them, and the reason they work so well is because there's a lot of complex tech happening in the background. Now, interestingly, we have used a lot of our drone technology to build this actually as quickly as we've been able to. So the same messaging protocols and the way that you control swarms of drones or swarms of robotics with these lightweight Mavlink messaging protocols, that's actually what we're using to do all of the distributed compute power and run all the game logic. So the game logic is actually run within these devices. The blaster, the vest, the portals, they all have this ESP32 system on chip that is a kind of a lightweight processor, but totally powerful enough to run our game logic. Now you got to realize that most of what in the gaming industry, most of what taxes a gaming computer are the graphics, right? They want to create the most realistic looking environment with, great looking ray tracing and lighting effects and all of that. Guess what? I'm looking at ray tracing right now. We are in it. So our reality is already an incredibly high poly count matrix that we're living in that we perceive as this like physical reality, but that all comes for free with the compute power of our brain.
Yeah.
Right. So all we're building are like basic first person shooter mechanics into this system. So it's really kind of like the Atari of this new type of spatial computing. And so while we've used a lot of tech from the drone industry that you use to control a lot of devices that are all talking to each other, we use another piece of tech that took us maybe 6 or so years to build was the ability to monitor batteries that are charging in the field for electric vehicle companies, for lift foils, for example. They want to be able to see and monitor the health of every one of their batteries or every one of their systems. So we're using that same tech in here to monitor the health of every blaster, every vest, every target. We can see every shot, every gellet that has been shot from every blaster. We know how many times each hit panel has been hit. So we can identify, hey, on this vest, every panel's been hit 15 times in the last couple of days, except for this one panel hasn't been hit once. Is that right? That may not be right. Maybe that's a bad panel. And so we can basically like, kind of provide kind of preventative maintenance to these systems, because we can immediately see that something's going wrong with one of our products, right? So while we have taken a lot from what we've done in the drone space, we have only hired a couple of people now from the gaming world, which is really cool. We actually, the head of developer relations for Magic Leap, which is one of the big augmented reality technology companies out there, has now joined our team and is really in charge of like the gameplay and how sticky it is and how fun it is. So far, all the basic concepts of stuff that I spec'd out a while ago, but it's not like I invented any of these things. These are just like, if you look at any first person shooter, you have a certain amount of ammo, you have to reload sometimes. Different blasters have different attributes and do different amounts of damage. The map is super important. You have a certain amount of health. You don't just one shot, you're eliminated, right? You have a certain amount of health. You can pick up health packs and med packs and things like that. So we're just taking like the core elements that exist really across all first person shooters. And that's what our initial experience will be. And obviously we'll have so much room for growth if we want to go kind of the Apex Legends route where, each character on your team has different skills and abilities. Maybe one's a better defender, one's better offense, one's a medic, right? And has different skill sets and abilities. But, initially all we have to do is basically follow the path that was set by, $150 billion a year market of first person shooter video games and say, the things that all of those have, let's make sure we have all those things. And then let's build this. And the thing that we're going to have that they don't have is that it actually hurts a little bit when you get hit and you can feel it and you're running around and you use your human body as the controller and you are your avatar. So if you want to run faster, then you should learn how to run faster. If you want to be more agile and you want to jump over the barricades better, maybe you should go take some parkour classes and jump over the barricades better. I mean, it's like you are your own avatar in life. So take care of your avatar, right? And so it's this,
oh, damn.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
That's so rad. Well, it's interesting too. Like you bring up I mean, gosh, how long were you in the drone world for? I mean, I guess technically you still are, but
still in it. Yeah. Maybe 15 years now, something like that.
So obviously you brought over, the technology has helped out, but there was other stuff there when you were in that space, other lessons, I think, that have helped shape you to who you are and how you're moving forward with gel blasters. And so, like, I'd love to get into that for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of my personal growth and development and the work that I did was maybe kind of spurred by my experience with DJI. And, it was a wild ride, right? I was on a journey I was building my own custom helicopters. I was on a journey to try to find a way to stabilize the camera better. I was using this autopilot system from a company named DJI that had like 13 engineers in Shenzhen that were making these little autopilots. And I realized, wow, they already have most of the algorithms written that stabilize my RC helicopter that we could use to stabilize the camera head and shoot more stable video. So that's kind of how I engaged with them. I ended up hiring them as a contract engineering firm to build this gimbal. Once that gimbal was built, it was the first ever 3-axis stabilized brushless motor gimbal ever. Maybe like even the military gimbals that were super high end, those are used for targeting, for laser designating. And so they don't actually care about the roll axis because a laser beam can spin. It doesn't matter. Whereas your video image, you need to stabilize the roll axis as well.
So the gimbal is the thing that keeps it.
Yeah. The gimbal does your pitch, yaw, and roll stabilization. Whereas like with these high end drone military gimbals, they were just doing pitch and yaw. That's all that mattered. And so once we saw that working, it was like, oh, wow, this is going to change the whole game. Like every piece of content, every TV show, commercial, movie, they're all going to use this tech because you can put a camera wherever you want. You can start with 2 feet off the ground and go up to 400 feet in the air, whatever you want to do. And so we decided we would start this, instead of me being the only customer of this device, I was like, hey, we should just sell these to the world because everyone's going to want these things. And so they said, okay, well, why don't you start DJI North America? You can be kind of founder and CEO of DJI North America, and you'll oversee all things flying camera. You'll help with the sales and marketing message and defining the products. And then we've got the engineers here and the manufacturing capability to build the stuff. And at that time, they're like, we don't actually have any funding to start this office. Like, you're going to need to do that on your own. And the way we can do it is we'll make like 50 of these gimbals that you've spec'd out and that we built for you. We'll make like 50 of them. If you can sell them to people, then you can use that money to kind of get the business off the ground. And then you can pay us back for those later, kind of as like this master distributor relationship between North America and global. Ultimately, we sold them, and we sold a lot more, and we grew from 3 million in revenue. We went 3 to like 20 to 135 to 450 to over $1 billion each year. So 3 million to $1 billion in like 5 years. And so as it, it was really wild creating this industry and seeing how drones were being used. I mean, I got to go in and fly with Elon Musk at SpaceX and fly one of our prototype drones around with him over the Falcon 9, prototype boosters, right? I got to go down and hang out with Richard Branson on his island and teach him how to fly drones. I taught Steven Spielberg how to fly his first drone. I mean, 60 Minutes came down and did a big thing on us with drones. I mean, it was just crazy. It was just, I went to a congressional hearing and flew a drone inside as I testified in Congress for what these drones could do to save lives and how we needed to be able to use them for commercial purposes. And here I am in a suit on C-SPAN, and I like flew a little drone around inside to show like drones are not what you guys are all thinking, these big giant things that are killing people in Afghanistan. They can be these little flying cameras. And that was, by the way, Christy, who was like, we need to take the word drone back because we were so scared of using it.
Yeah. Drone strikes.
Yeah. We always used to just say flying camera, UAV, small UAV, something like that. And she was like, no, let's just call them drones. These things are going to become bigger and more prolific than the other drones that people are used to. Anyway, so that was obviously a wild experience as we're growing so fast. And, I had 48% of DJI North America. They own 52% as the kind of global brand. And so when we're doing that kind of revenue and we're growing that much, it's like, okay, cool. Like I'm set. I'm done. Like the value of my equity in this thing is so much. Like I after this run, I'm going to just get to do whatever I want. If I want to keep working and building stuff, if I want to just, gallivant around the world and my private jet, I mean, I can do whatever I want. And it was very interesting as a young person to like be experiencing that kind of success and growth in the company and realizing like, and I'm, how much that like made me feel proud and worthy of my dad's love and check me out. I've earned it, and then basically once the business was kind of a foregone conclusion of success, I think the board in China, who was kind of not even paying that much attention, we just had this meteoric success, was kind of like, who's this white guy in Texas that has 48% of our largest global market? We don't need to do that anymore. And so they approached me and said, hey, we want to buy out your 48% of North America and give you a percentage of the global company in exchange and have it be all one company. And you really be the chief innovation officer, coming up with all the cool products that we should make. Right. And now that it's sales and marketing, our brand is built, all of that, we really want you focusing on product. And so I was like, okay, I'm open to that concept. And so I said, why don't you come out to China and, put together some numbers and present to us, what percentage of the global company that you think you should get for your 48% of North America. We hire an accounting firm. We hire outside auditors to figure all this stuff out, this massive report. And I get out to China and they're like, let us share with you our numbers first. I'm like, okay, cool. They pulled up a screen share of like a 2-line Excel spreadsheet. And I'm like, this looks lightweight. I'm like, okay, where are we going here? And they go, so based on our calculations, if you stayed doing aerial cinematography, remember this is years earlier, I had been doing aerial cinematography, and you hired 3 crews and you were able to go on, 10 shoots per week of daily video shoots. They're kind of speccing out this whole thing, and you made this much profit and you were one of the top aerial cinematography outfits, you would probably make like $1 million a year, and I'm like, okay, again, where are we going with this? And we want you to do even better than that. So, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is the calculus. I'm like, guys, that was years ago. And like, remember where all this came from. And so they said, we want to offer you 0.3% of the global company in exchange for your 48% of North America. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh, holy shit. I was not expecting this. And that was an interesting journey. I ultimately said, well, we have a contract in place. I am the exclusive distributor of these products in North America. The contract's in place for another 3 years. I'll just stack paper for 3 years and be on my way. Like, I'm going to keep exactly what we have. No, thanks. I'm not going to do that, because then I also have 0.3% of a Shenzhen based company. I have absolutely no say in what those shares are versus 48% of a Texas LLC. Right. So after a couple of months, of kind of like slowly extracting how we were doing things, how we were making the content, how we were building the brand. We walked in one day, it was actually December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, and all of our emails were turned off. I was like, oh, interesting. I look on my phone, I log into Bank of America. There was like $8 million in our account. I log in, it was like 50 grand. I'm like, okay. Frank and I were the only two signers on the account. All the money's gone. And then an email goes out to all of our dealers across North America saying, hey, just so you know, Colin's no longer part of DJI. He actually wasn't ever really part of DJI to begin with. He was just kind of a representative of ours. So anyways, all future orders, go ahead and direct them to your new salesperson. And they introduced their headquarter based salesperson to him. And so, yeah, it was like, wow, this is like, I'm in the twilight zone. And so it was really at that time, the only time I had initiated a lawsuit in my life. And we immediately got an injunction on their sales. The judge here in Austin was like, this is very obvious what's going on. And we kind of battled back and forth leading up to the trial. They wanted to settle. They didn't want to, I didn't want to have to battle them for 7 years for some settlement,
Yep.
for some whatever a jury would say it was worth. So we ended up settling, and I got, it was a decent little win, a very, 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 maybe 1% of what it, was probably actually valued. And so that was an interesting time, to go through that and be like, wow, I'm starting over. And will I ever have another opportunity to be part of creating something from scratch and like getting to, grab the, tiger by the tail and just like in this explosive new thing. And so, that was actually what I would do a lot of my manifestation meditations on, was picturing being part of a hyper growth scenario again in the future, that, creating something and building something that people love so much, they just wanted more of it. And we were trying to just address the demand and what that felt like in the drone industry and really tapping into that feeling. And I think that's what let me be open to the concept of Gel Blaster when I saw the hole that existed in the market. Because I'm not a toy guy. I'm not a gaming guy. I was like a drone robotics innovator. But because I could see, oh, wow, this could be one of those things that is like new and unique and different and engaging enough that it could be like an explosive growth, kind of category creator situation. But yeah, that post DJI time and, feeling shame and feeling like, wow, I've gone from this like super successful tech entrepreneur guy that like, I'm hanging out with Larry Page and all these like big tech entrepreneurs are like, yeah, you taught me how to fly my first drone. And, now all of a sudden I'm just nothing. It's all taken away. They pulled all the money out of the bank account. I lost my email. A letter goes out to everyone saying he was never really part of anything to begin with. And, it was like, how am I going to show my face to all my, cool entrepreneur, successful friends in Austin, and And I had to really like sit with that ego death of, you know, I was really kind of deriving my sense of self-worth to, which ultimately started with my dad, younger, wanting to like be, you know, kind of like achieve enough to be worthy of his love and his attention, which then, you know, just kind of perpetuated through into life. But yeah, that was a big learning lesson. I mean, talk about an ass kicking, you know?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's obviously very personal, and it's it shows, you know, I mean, you talked about it earlier, you know, how you're approaching this kind of, you know, next chapter at Gel Blaster, and how that ego is in check. There's many checks and balances in there for you, you know, obviously with, you know, kind of giving way to Christy and her intuitive nature and her being really a guide there, but also with what you've learned. And, dude, just, I think what your story is resonant for so many people, not on that scale. That's rare. But the lesson in where that, a lot of that comes from, and I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's very similar for me, and the driving force for a lot of good and a lot of learning, and a lot of
unlearning,
and it's that awareness, you know, that, oh, I'm here in this position because I forgot who I was. I forgot what was really important. And that's okay, as long as I'm willing to let go of those things. And, but those shiny toys and the meeting the people, and this is, you know, I have my own version of that, and it's cool and it's awesome and it's fun and it's energizing, and it has to be kept in its proper place, or shit gets real and you're like, I'm a fucking fraud.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yep.
You know, yeah, you find yourself in a situation, how the fuck did I get here? It's like, oh yeah,
mm-hmm.
it was because of me.
Yep.
And, you know, probably what I love most about that story is just your accountability in that, you know, and just like, you know what? I have some responsibility in this, and it would be very easy. I don't think anyone would think differently if you were just like, those guys completely fucked me. I was not my fault at all. Da, 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 and I've never heard you. You've always, in my opinion, taken more responsibility probably than but I think that's part of it. It's like, fuck it, I'll take it all. I'll take as much as I can.
You know, I think once I had realized just how much we really are just manifesting all day, every day, whether we like it or not, whether we're doing it intentionally or not, right? We are only receiving a reality that we are creating in our minds. It just takes a little bit longer for the reality to come into the physical, right? And so there were several things that I did along that way that caused that outcome. You know, it was not a one-sided street. It was very co-participatory. And even more so is after that happened, I felt so wronged by DJI, and I was being recruited by Chris Anderson and 3D Robotics to come, you know, a US-based drone company to build a competing drone. And we built the Solo drone, and came out with some really cool new innovations that we dreamt up that DJI didn't have. And, but I made some really poor decisions along that journey, that because I was in such a rush to try and beat DJI and get them back, right? That I wasn't making decisions in the most clear-headed way that was the most appropriate for where we were. I wanted to go so big, so fast, and launch at big box retail, launch Best Buy chain wide, internationally, before the product was even done. I'm just trusting the engineers that what they say is true and it's going to actually happen. Of course, it can only be their best guess, right? And, you know, we were supposed to have our costs, we're going to be like $400 per unit by the time we launched. And so we're negotiating our deals with Best Buy. It's going to be $1,000 retail. We're going to sell it to them for $675, and then as the timeline started getting more and more compressed and we were getting closer and closer to ship date, all of a sudden our CMs, our contract manufacturers, were like, well, we have to spot buy all these things. We're going to have to increase costs here and here to make it fast enough to meet your timeline. So your first 10,000 units are actually going to be 608 coming off the line. And if we're selling at 675, like we are losing significant money with adding in like the cost of doing any kind of business. Right. So, but they were like, but don't worry, after this 10,000 units, we're going to be able to get the cost down. But we actually were selling so fast. We actually outsold the Phantom 3 when we launched the Solo drone. And we became the top drone. So we grew from like 5 million in revenue to 100 million in revenue in maybe 18 months. And so we didn't have time to make those changes to the product. And so every time we'd order another 10,000, it was still 608. It was still 608. It was still 608. And so we weren't making any money. We were losing money as we're doing 100 million, or I think we did 90 million, 89 million, something like that in revenue that first year with the product. We're losing money out the wazoo because we could never get our cost structure right because we moved so fast. And so then as we were leading into Christmas, DJI, who is now like on their 17th drone, right? And they're a thousands of person company and they own all their own manufacturing, learned so many lessons there because we were using contract engineers, contract manufacturers, supply chain consultants. There were so many hands in the pie, right? So DJI is like, okay, they're outselling the Phantom 3 with the Solo currently. The Phantom 3 was $1,200, but it came with a camera and a video downlink and everything. We were $1,000 for the drone, $400 for the gimbal. So we were at $1,400. But you also had to put your own GoPro in it. So we partnered with GoPro so you could control the GoPro camera through our app, through the drone, through the gimbal interface. So we're like at $1,400 to their $1,200, but their $1,200 came with a camera. Our $1,400, you still had to use your own GoPro. But we were hanging in there because we had incredible sales and marketing. We had some really cool innovations that they didn't have. And so they're leading into Christmas. They're like, here, watch this, $499 for the Phantom 3. It's from $1,200 to $499. And now we're like, oh shit, they're at $500. We're at $1,400 without a camera. Our sales, it was like a spigot just turned off, right? I mean, the Phantom 3 is a great drone. I mean, I had a part in building that one too, right? I mean, it's a great product and DJI makes a great product, but they literally just turned off the spigot.
So we'll take a loss for a little while just to put you guys out of business.
Yeah. And actually, just to be fair, I don't actually even think that they cared that much about us at 3DR. We're this young tech company startup. Okay. They were really trying to dissuade the Sonys and LGs and Samsungs and Apples of the world from getting into the drone market. This was always, and I got to give it to Frank, my partner at DJI. He really had a plan the whole time. And he was like, we're going to sneakily get big. And then once we're too big to ignore, that this consumer drone industry is too big to ignore, we're going to deprofitize and demonetize it so much that all these big tech companies that are going to think about making their own drone are going to pull out their calculator and be like, wait a second, this thing does X, Y, Z. It has these high def cameras. It flies super far away. It defies gravity. It has a video downlink and they're selling it for $500. Like we can't even make it for $500. Right. So that buys them another several years of keeping the big guys out. Right. And so that was part of the strategy. And obviously it lined up perfectly with timing to just crush 3DR, but it's not like that was a big feat for them. I don't think they were ever that worried about us.
The timing of it was just terrible for you guys.
I mean, it just turned off the spigot. And the thought of trying to chase them down when we were already losing money, we're already losing money on every unit. Yeah. We can't chase them down. And so, that was a big loss. And, we basically ended up having to shutter the hardware side of the business. We focused more on drone data and analytics and, kind of enterprise drone use for construction sites and things like that. The company was ultimately acquired by Autodesk, and it was okay of an outcome, I guess. But, again, we were on a rocket ship and, but it wasn't built on sound fundamentals, right? We didn't have the sound fundamentals of a highly profitable product that, because if we were selling this thing and we were taking a loss, then even though people like the product, it doesn't really exist. It's not real. That's fake. Like what I tell entrepreneurs that want to get into a business is like, you need to be selling your thing at a profit, at a healthy gross margin from day one. Otherwise, you're just fooling yourself. Because if I had to sell gel blasters at $10, well, people would really love them at $10, but it would be less than my cost and it would be fake, right? It wouldn't be that product can't be sold at $10 in any kind of scalable, sustainable way. So yeah, that was a big one where I really was like on a mission to prove myself, on a mission to get back at DJI. We could have taken that thing a lot slower. We could have, gone direct to consumer for a while first. Who knows? Maybe we could have stuck in long enough, even with them crushing down the pricing. We wouldn't have had so much inventory in channel. But yeah, that was another big learning lesson.
Well, you've implemented that, as you said, with Christy being, that one that's like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? It's to feed Colin's ego. No, it's not. It's,
yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like, but, I think it's pretty rare. And,
the ego part is interesting, because utilizing my ego to help create is actually a very powerful tool for me, and really partnering with my ego.
I love that from East Forest. I've heard him say that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And realizing that like, it's not about like not having an ego. Like I love when I meet people that are like kind of new in the work, and they're like,
you meet any of those people here in Austin?
No, very few, very few, just few and far between.
And by the way, we say this because we were both new in this work too at one point. We were those same people that we're going to laugh at right now.
Yeah, for sure. Right. It's that
with love.
It's like, okay. Yep. I think I did it. I'm done. As of last week, my ego is eliminated. I have no more ego. I had a guy sitting in my office very recently, a very high power, big, and he was like, I'm done. I don't have an ego anymore. I don't have an ego. I'm like, cool, good. Okay. Early on in the journey, whatever, I was in a similar place. But I think we realized like in order to like hold these cells together and convince this energetic system that we're separate from the all that is, like that requires some ego to like create our little individualized aspect of consciousness, right? Our own unique flavor. And, so, I have a massive ego. I've had a massive ego my whole life, always compete, earn my dad's love, be the best, always comparing, compare. How do I stack up? How do I rank against all these other people? And I think at that time, it was just that I thought that was kind of all that there was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was that was all of who I was that ego. And then as I realized that that's just the like small part of me that is the like, does the monkey dance of, Colin in this reality. And there's actually a much, much bigger part of myself that I don't always necessarily have, or I actually, from a percentage basis, probably rarely have access to that awareness of that much larger part of myself. Because just by definition, me sitting here and like using my vocal cords to make noises and use my brain to process thoughts and make sounds that sound like words that can string together to have somebody understand what we're talking about, like that requires my ego to like animate this small version of myself. But also my ego is what wants to like win the pickleball match, or, win the golf hole when we're playing golf, or, be able to foil really well and like have that competitive nature. Right. And so I want to utilize that competitive spirit and that competitive nature. And this is something that Chrissy and I really experimented with and really went all in on our second round of the Amazing Race. We were able to kind of manifest getting back on the race to try out all of these tools and see how it would work in this like very engineered and controlled environment where we didn't have control of how we came across, or, we're in their game, right?
I want to give you, so it's that time. Do you have time for this story, or do you have to be on the road?
I mean, it's not too much. Yeah. We'll wrap up pretty quick.
Okay.
But, it was ultimately like, how can we leverage wanting to win and wanting to, being all in for the win and being all in on the competition, but not attached to the win. And that is something that has really stuck with me over these last 5 or 6 years and growing Gel Blaster. It is so hard sometimes to not get attached to the win. You start seeing where it's going. You start thinking about where you're going to be in 2 years and what that's going to mean and what you're going to have the ability to do. And, you start kind of like becoming attached to like, I don't want that to not be the case, and
For sure.
finding that balance of being all in and being competitive and wanting to win, but not letting that be the only part, not letting that be the main driver, just a tool in the tool bag. It has really been my work that I've been doing over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, we were joking about it earlier, but you have this kind of awareness about, oh fuck, I've been on this one track and this is the only shit that seems to be important. And then you're like, well, it's not that important. And then you're like, oh, it's not important at all. And that's where the ego death and all that, I try to separate from that. And then I think ideally you settle somewhere in the middle, and it's like, you're no longer the hammer and everything's a nail. It's nuance to when you bring that part of you out. And I'm like you, I think it comes out more than, if I had to judge it, like, yeah, I wish it was out a little less.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a main operating system for so long, and with a lot of great results, and I think a lot of other results, and that's even putting like a judgment on that, but other results that maybe you don't even realize are being caused by that thing. You kind of slide it under the rug. That wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's I think when those pieces of you are kind of married and they're in that flow, it can be really exciting, and you can not care and care, and you can hold both of those things. And I think that's where, the dance was for me, of like, just like letting go of all of it and like everything, and not really caring, to like slowly kind of like, well, this is still some stuff that lights me up. It's just like, what can it not just be the North Star? Can it just be a part of the direction I'm heading? And it's part of the journey. And if it happens, cool. And, I've talked about this a lot, on here about different investments I've done. And the investment, I did, I got together with you, and I got together with Feel Free around the same time. And it was the first time that I had felt, I remember I was in the sauna one day, it was 6, 8, 10 months later. It's like, oh, actually, I'm not going for an exit here. Like, it's part of the equation. And yeah, that's, you don't invest without hoping there's a good exit, but I'm not looking forward to the exit, because that means that journey is over in a lot of ways. And I've just enjoyed the process of being, in partnership and support, in whatever you want to call it, with you and Gel Blasters and the team. And it's been such a fun ride to be a part of that. The old me would be more focused on the multiple and when's the exit going to be and all that. And that's like the icing, the cherry on the top of the whatever the fucking thing is.
Yeah, the cake is the journey.
Yeah.
Right? And if you can enjoy that part, and it's not just looking for that outcome, and then the outcome is almost like bittersweet, right? Like, okay,
exactly.
Cool. Like, we're done playing together in this form, in this container. And that was really fun doing that. And so there's a part of that that's gone now, right? So
yes.
We want those exits to be somewhat bittersweet, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found, for me, it was just like when I really started embracing curiosity mixed with the willingness to be totally honest with myself. Those two things, when I would go into kind of contemplation space or meditation about why I was showing up a certain way, it's just being like really curious, like what makes me tick? What makes us animate? What is this reality that we're living in? What is the nature of consciousness? I'm just so curious by it. I'm so curious. And if I can leverage that deep curiosity and then be willing to let anything be true, like those times when you say, oh, yeah, that wasn't my ego. Maybe let me just experiment with letting it be true that I fully caused that from my own ego and my own desire to show how cool and awesome and great I am and be better than the next guy or whatever. Let me just play with that and let that be true for a moment, right? And then it's like, okay, yeah, it turns out that is exactly what happened,
Yeah.
right? But then as I would allow that truth to be there, it kind of let me see things from deeper. And while I was only seeing the shadow aspect of some part of me, if I can use deep curiosity and truth to dive a little deeper and go a little bit deeper in my understanding, then I could like look up instead of looking down at something and seeing the shadow. I could look up at some place where I was stuck and see the light side of it, see the 8-year-old kid that was just looking for more attention from his dad and built this program that has stuck with me that now is manifest in this way. Now I have like real understanding, right? Which equals compassion and forgiveness for self. And then it just kind of like lets those things not be so prevalent in my everyday decision-making.
Well said. Where can people find Gel Blasters?
Gelblaster.com. Everywhere. 20,000 retail stores.
Fuck, 20,000.
Yeah.
And then keep an eye out for Gel Blaster Nexus at Main Event and many more locations after we head down to Orlando.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Come
Awesome.
see us at IAPA.
I love you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Love you so much, Cal. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.